Hey guys, Christian Ludemann here. In this module, we will learn about service workers and progressive web apps with Angular. So let's dive in. Here's what we're gonna go. First, we will look at what is a progressive web app, how to set up an Angular PWA. I'll show you a bunch of examples with two applications built with Angular PWA. We will look at offline caching, how to install the app, how to set up push notifications and updates, and how to handle PWA in production. So a PWA is a web application built with web technologies and can be installed on your phone or desktop. It's an web alternative to the apps you normally see that you need to install on the App Store. So it supports some of the same capabilities that a normal app on the App Store, for example, iPhone, would allow you to, such as installing it, offline support, easy usage when you're on the go, doing jobs in the background, push notifications, stuff like that. So how do you set up an Angular PWA? So it's pretty straightforward to set up. There's some great tools available. So Angular has the Angular/PWA package. So you can just install it like that. Or if you have NX, if you use NX, you do NX add, and then you can add the Angular PWA. That would add a couple of files to your Angular app to install the PWA. First of all, you have the ng sw-config file, which is where you configure the caching options, how the service worker, so we will get to that soon. The service worker is basically this interception layer between your end destination, the assets of the APIs you want to request. So you can set up caching with this one. So basically you configure the caching rules in the ng-sw config. Then there's the manifest.web manifest file. That is the one we use for setting the data for installing the app on, for example, your desktop or your phone. So here you can set the icon you want for the app on the description and such. And then it adds a bunch of icons, which you will need these icons, at least an icon when you install the app, and also for push notification, you can use icons like that for your app. And then it will update the index.html file to reference this manifest.web manifest file, and update the project file. So it will load the service worker. And yeah, that gives you capabilities such as installing the PWA. So you can install PWA based on the info in the web manifest file. I'll show you an example of this. This is, for example, from my course portal. If I go to one of my projects here, for example, my course portal, and here I have the course client. If I do nx serve course client, and I run it in production, so I activate the service worker. So the setup is that we run the service worker if we are in production, provide service worker, and then I can go to here, and then I can see I get this one. So that means I can install the app. If I click install here, then it will now have an app like a full desktop app. And I'll be able to search and get easy access. And I can install this on my phone as well. And then I have for my students, I have an app where they can easily access my content. And also I can set up the caching rules. So the content is cached. I'll show you that very soon. How, for example, this caching rule where the API is cached. And if we lose a network connection, you can still access it from the cache. So let's jump back to the presentation. And yeah, the web manifest file looks like this. So you see the reference to icons for different sizes, and as a start URL, a scope, display size, theme color, background color, and the name, which is all relevant for when you install the app. Offline caching. So yeah, allows us to use the app without internet. You can cache assets for the API request. Let's see how that would work. So if I, for example, go to, now I had running on localhost, so if I go on localhost here, I'll just need to log in here. Now I'm log in, and then we'll just see the service worker is installed. If I go to, so it should be installed. And for example, now if I go here and I just refresh it one time, now when we have internet on, and if I then go offline and I refresh, then there'll be a little timeout period, and then it will fall back to the cache. You can see we go back to the cache now, we install this from the cache. So we have like offline capabilities. We can go in and watch, because this is also cached. The different course material is, except the videos, our streaming videos is not possible. Definitely a different download mechanism to download the videos, but everything else in the app is cached like this. So that was offline caching, and how I set this up for the course portal is in here. So as default, you see these rules where it's setting up the app with prefetch install mode, which basically means as soon as you install the app as service worker, then it will fetch these files and cache them. For this one, from the install mode, this one is lazy, so this is only when you have referenced these things before. And update mode, it will prefetch them. So that is, for example, when you go back and you update the app and it sees there's a new version, then it will fetch these again. And this is one extra added for the APIs, so it can cache these. So if it can give some performance benefits, if it's timing out, that's at the timer for 2 seconds, then it goes to the cache, basically. And then you can even update the cache in the background, so next time you have the newest data if something changed. Which is fine here, because this is a course platform, so it doesn't change that often the content. Like, so having like a 4-hour cache, you don't need like every request to show the newest content. If you refresh again and it's updated in the background, it's not really a big deal. So caching the assets and API requests. Push notifications. Allows for users to be notified about updates in, for example, in the course platform when there's new content. Could be an example. Needs the client to send push subscription to the server. So this is like the handshake it does first. The client provides a push subscription, which is sent to the server, and the server can then save this push subscription and can send a subscription to each push. There's a bunch of, I can walk through an example. So let me close this app here. And here we have a PWA client and a PWA server. So from the app component, we're doing some checks here if with this SV push, which is a service provider for Angular service worker module. You can check if the service worker is enabled. If it is enabled, then we can request subscription from this push notification service. Here it will generate a subscription, and it uses this public key, which is a way to identify the subscription, and it has this corresponding one on the server side, and the server side has a private key as well. So it's like this public-private key pair. You use for sending notifications. So if you get a subscription and we want to send this to the server, so it's being sent to the server. So let's look what it looks like on the server side. So the server has an endpoint called subscription. It is checking if this subscription already exists, because otherwise, if you just refresh the app, we will have a new subscription. We don't want multiple ones to be sent, so otherwise it will give multiple notifications of the same kind. So we get that subscription and then we save it in the in-memory database. And then on the app here, there's a button as well, which has this function called send notification. And with this one, this is where the magic happens. So with this one, we say creating this payload object, with the title, body, icon, and actions. These actions are actions that are supported by the Angular Service Worker for different actions. So the default is just open the window again, open the app as you saw we had installed. So last focused or open. It will focus on existing or open at this URL. Navigate in existing or open at URL. So that will open at some specific URL. Or you can send a request in the background, like you can send an API notification, API requests to the API. So this is the different actions that are supported by the Angular Service Worker. And let's try and run this and see how it looks like when you get a notification in. So I'll have these running here. So I have the client running here. I'll have the PWA server running here. So these are running now. And I will refresh this one. I'll just go to localhost. And now we should see now the server gave us this subscription. So now the subscription is set up. This is something I'll show later. This is the update notification. So it's an update. I will update the app. And here we have the PWA, where we want to trigger some notifications. We can refresh here. We can see that we got the push notification object. Push subscription here. And we will send notification. We'll see here we got a notification, and it has these options: focus last, navigate last, settings, which correspond to what we configured on the server. Where we had these options. This is the default: focus last, navigate last, send request to the background. So yeah, this is how you can trigger a push notification. So obviously, this is a very simple example. You would hook this into some different parts of your application where you need to send these event outs to your users. And then, you use the payload here, and for each of these subscriptions in the in-memory database is this example what we're using. Then we are adding these push subscriptions and having these notifications being sent with a web push on the subscription, and then some payload that is stringified. I'm using all the different types of actions here. So you have the actions, and then you have the data where you configure them. So the push notification client had this request subscription, and using the public key and send notification. On the server side, we had this subscription endpoint where we save a subscription in the in-memory database. And then we have the send notification endpoint, which is using this payload here with the title, body, icon, actions, which are these different actions. And some of them are on action click, custom actions that are defined here: focus, nav, request, for the different actions supported by Angular Service Worker. And in production, so let's look at that. And also service workers in production, how we handle updates and how you would manage such an app in production. So progressive web app version is a collection of files. We don't have traditional versioning like a package JSON file or something like that. It's a collection of files that you keep track of. Angular Service Worker checks for updates when you initialize the app or when you navigate from a different origin domain to your app domain. And that's generally enough for updates. Generally, you don't need to do any extra stuff for triggering updates in this. But if you need to still, you can set up something like a polling mechanism, like the set interval here, where you, for example, every 6 hours, check for updates. And it will try and see if there's updates, or it will then fetch the latest version. So there's updates. It has built-in cache bust mechanisms. So if it see that the hash has changed because of a new deployment of the version, that the assets hash is different now, then it will be smart enough to know that it should fetch the whole new version and bust the cache in the service worker. For assets that don't have hash, it will respect the HTTP headers caching policies, and when the cache expires, it will then fetch it in the background, so doing a stale while we render for no cache content. And if the new version is available, ask users to load it. So if then there's a new version, then it will see a version ready, and then the new version available, and then load the new version. So that's a way to set up this kind of like polling loading approach. But for the most part, you shouldn't need to do anything. If you just deploy a new version and the hash changes, then that should be enough. So here's what we covered. What is a PWA and why it's useful, how to set up the Angular PWA, offline caching, we demonstrated, install the application, push notifications we saw, and the updates and production handling of this. For resources, you can check out the PWA setup in this do monorepo and the course platform repos, and also the Angular docs for PWA and service workers. It's quite in-depth and explain a lot of stuff as well. It's pretty well explained here. If you want to dive into more of the details of the underneath workings of the service worker. Otherwise, I see you in Discord.